There are a lot of people out there that espouse themselves as business experts.
Influencers and thought leaders.
Yeah, sure.
They're just everywhere.
They're selling this concept of I am a full-time consultant. I can be your coach. I can be your trainer. I can fix your business. What are you doing? And then the solutions that they offer, I've seen and read a lot of different things. Man, I get it. They want business to sound really complicated. So you have to spend a lot of money with them to uncomplicate it for you.
Right.
Business is not complicated.
To be fair, though, a lot of entrepreneurs go into business overcomplicating the crap out of it.
Absolutely. Right? And then these thought leaders come in and support that overcomplication.
Right.
And I get more frustrated when people begin to listen to thought leaders that are making it hard for them to be successful.
Right.
Business can be simple.
From the business capital of the world, the Big Apple, New York, Middle Tennessee, it says here. Sounds riveting.
It will be.
This is the Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast, a podcast about Middle Tennessee business owners and professionals. Mostly.
Yeah, that's right, mostly. Because occasionally we'll have people from different parts of the country. Maybe they'll be in business, maybe they won't, but mostly Middle Tennessee business owners and professionals. Thank you, Mr. Matt Wilson. You can check out his podcast, Mostly Marketing with Matt Wilson. And I may or may not have borrowed the mostly from his podcast name, so check that out. He's a great guy. Offered to, I actually asked him and made him voice my podcast intro, so great thanks to Mr. Matt Wilson. This is the Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast, where we talk to Middle Tennessee business owners and professionals about all sorts of things that are going on in their business. And today is no different. Make sure that you subscribe, rate, like, and review. This is a video and audio podcast. Check us out at MMTBP.com, because Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast.com is a little bit of a mouthful. What don't you say there, John?
I would.
My business partner with J Squared Systems is today's guest, John Woerner. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Our annual episode. It seems to be our second annual. Would this be the first annual or second annual?
This would be the first annual,
yeah,
but the second podcast.
That doesn't make any sense when people say the first annual, because it's really the first event, right?
Well, yeah. If you plan to do it annually and assuming people actually show up, it might work. I don't know.
I should tell people I am also the host of this podcast. My name is Jim McCarthy with JimMcCarthyVoiceovers.com and It'sYourShow.co, the very company that produces podcasts like this. We've done okay with that this year, right? Yeah, it's kind of getting some traction.
Sure.
It's earning some money. Takes a little time, right?
It does.
But man, what a year we've had.
Yes.
We're going to get into things, all that. But of course, first we have a staple of the podcast, which is the Dad Joke Challenge. I know you're a fan of dad jokes because you're a dad.
I need to pause for how do you have a staple of a second episode of a podcast?
Staple of a feature. It's a staple of this is a podcast previously known as What's Your Problem?
Oh, so we're just continuing the same podcast with a new name.
It's a new name.
But it's a new episode.
We don't really we'll talk about problems if we have problems, but I mean, it was kind of, it's a Middle Tennessee business podcast.
All right.
I explained it 2 episodes ago.
Cool.
Why I did all this.
This is the second episode. Was that the pre-episode
This
episode?
is actually the 3rd episode.
Ooh.
Yes.
Go me.
Yes, you made it to the 3rd episode of the rebranded podcast.
Save the best for last.
No, this isn't the last episode. We're going to keep on going, man. We're going to go into the thousands of episodes. The Dad Joke Challenge is, of course, brought to you by Trade Bank of Nashville. Mr. Ed Fox is the head of that. He's a great guy. He lives here in Nashville. If you ever get a chance to have a coffee with him, ask him for a dad joke, because he'll have one at the ready. No kidding. And it will be different every single time. I promise you that. So they take care of us with trade. We're members on there. If you're a business that's in the service industry, even if you're selling products, look for it, because it's an alternate economy, if you will. If you want to network with other businesses with like-minded attitudes towards trade, it's not a bad thing to look into, and it's not that expensive. So check it out, Trade Bank of Nashville. All the details are in the description. So I'm actually going to make it a competition. Okay, so if either of us laugh, we're going to keep track.
Okay.
Right? So I don't know what the jokes are. He tells the jokes, Ed Fox.
I don't know how to laugh.
Yes, you do.
Okay.
I've seen you laugh before.
It happened once.
You do show emotion through joy.
Okay. I like
Other
that.
things, not so much, but you know.
Oh, I just laughed. Dang
Oh
it.
my gosh. Here we go. Joke number 1.
G'day, which American politician is least guilty? Lincoln. You could say he's innocent.
I don't get it.
Innocent.
Innocent.
In a cent. Because he's on a penny. Oh.
That's actually clever.
That's not
But
bad.
it's way too hard for a dad joke.
It's a little bit, it's lofty.
Yeah.
All right, joke number 2.
What do you call a knight who gives up easy in a fight? Surrender?
I get
Surrender.
it. Surrender.
Because he's surrendering.
Surrender.
That's right. You gotta love the Aussie accent. That
This
goes
guy's
along with
definitely not American English.
No, he came to the country and he loves this country because of its opportunity Yeah.
To tell bad jokes.
to tell bad jokes and get into cricket and trade bank. So,
Why is it that people don't like jokes about the Civil War? Well, they're generally not funny.
General Lee.
Oh,
Yes.
man, I'm really dumb this morning. Because I was like, this joke is generally not funny. And I was right there with him.
Right. General Lee. Yeah.
Thank you for clarifying that for me.
Number 4. I picked right up on it. So
What did Sushi A say to Sushi B? Wasabi.
wasabi. You're laughing. Oh, you lost that one.
That was a
was a laugh.
extended breath.
That was a chuckle though underneath that breath. That was there was the impetus behind the breath was a laugh.
Yes.
I'm winning so far.
Congratulations.
My dad, who loved fishing, used to tell me, he said, there's a fine line between fishing and standing on the riverbank looking like an idiot.
Okay, I laughed at that one. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Because you fish. There's a fine line between fishing and standing on the
right.
riverbank.
It's the fishing line.
It's the fishing line.
Right.
That's right.
Right. Otherwise, you're just standing on a bank.
But
staring at a wall
I just basically pictured you standing on a bank fishing
without a line.
without a line, and it made me laugh.
Do I hold the big stick in my hand if I have no line?
Oh, I don't know. But anyway, there you go. There's the Dad Joke Challenge. Once again, brought to you by Trade Bank of Nashville, Mr. Ed Fox. I really look him up. He's on LinkedIn. He's on Facebook. He's pretty much a lot of different places. Reach out to him. He'll take you for coffee, and you'll enjoy every minute of it. He's a very entertaining guy. So on with the show. John, here we are a year later. We've been through a flood in this place.
Yeah.
Did we actually do the podcast after the flood last time?
We did, yes.
So we did address that.
We did.
That was, we're just getting out of it.
Yes.
Putting this place back together. It took a year.
A full year.
A full flipping year.
Yeah.
What else have we done this year? You and I, we co-own this business.
Mm-hmm.
We do a lot of full color RGB DMX programmable lighting, as well as other basic lighting. We've gotten into podcasts and some content creation using my skills and talents in that area. And we're growing that arm of the business to fund a marketing team for the entirety of the business, right?
Right.
We've had some milestones this year.
Yes.
We've actually achieved stability. I mean, it's the first year I felt calm in, 6 years.
Well, being that this is our second year in business and the first year is always hard, I hope it is calmer in the third year than it was even in the second.
But to be fair, we had momentum going into this business from a previous organization that was somewhat tumultuous.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. It should not be named.
2022 was a rough year. Right?
Yes. Yeah. That's sanely. So either way, yeah, we've had a very successful second year in business. As second year businesses go, I feel like we've reached a state of flexibility in the company that most second year businesses don't get to enjoy, which allows for like vacations with family and some downtime at the holidays. It allows for us to ensure that all of our employees are well paid and compensated. We've got benefits packages now, and that's been a big step up this year for our staff.
And you were really it's all new to me. And, even the Christmas party, the first Christmas party we had last night, I voiced that, hey, getting into business since 2016, I was like falling my way into it. You've been practicing business for many, many years, in either an executive role or even a C-suite level role, starting with, I believe video games back in your early teens or even before that.
Childhood,
playing business video games.
Yep. Yep. Business simulation games was my jam as a youth, as it were.
Right.
Wasn't big into the fighting games or the warfare games, but I really loved the concept of taking nothing, because I grew up with next to nothing, and then just being strategic with it and turning it into something. And so empire building games, business sims, those kind of things. Lemonade Stand was the first one to ever grab my attention back
Such
in
a simple concept that you probably gleaned a lot off
mid
of,
80s,
right?
About supply and demand, effective purchasing, in that case, weather impacts on your business, but being able to plan ahead and see things coming and then make decisions. That was something at 6-7 years old I was fascinated with. And so obviously it's been my life's effort to learn and to grow and to develop a healthy strategy for success in business. And obviously we've come a long way from Lemonade Stand, but a lot of the principles
are still the same.
Stay the same.
Right.
So
like what were some of the principles? I mean, the supply and demand, size and scale, scope and scale, I guess, because a lot of entrepreneurs will, get really wonky when it comes to spending $50,000, $75,000, $100,000 in inventory.
Right.
Especially I'm like, ooh, that is a lot of money. But, you kind of paid it. Well, it's X amount of dollars in inventory that we're going to be able to sell and get that. Now it's all paid for.
Right.
Which I understand.
Right.
But it's when you're not used to that kind of mindset, man, it can be daunting.
Yeah. I think the business standards that are the same in Lemonade Stand as, running a business in 2023, now 2024 next week, is that there's got to be a healthy rhythm between acquisition and sales. And what I mean by that is in Lemonade Stand, if I bought all the sugar out and I ran out of money and then nobody bought any drinks the next day, I'd be out of business in 2.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if I have money in the bank, it's better to reinvest it into areas of future potential and growth than just to sit on it for the sake of sitting. And so there's always a balance between expected or anticipated demand. So if I knew tomorrow was going to be rainy in Lemonade Stand and nobody wanted to buy lemonade or 22 degrees, then by all means, I would hold off on purchasing because I knew the sales wouldn't be there and products go bad over time or they don't stay relevant if you're not in a food industry. And so you always want to measure the expected anticipated demand and have a clear balance. And we call that forecasting in business nowadays. If we're looking at proper business growth today, it's how do we forecast well to ensure that our labor needs, our inventory needs, and then our sales demand and fulfillment match up in a healthy way. It's a balancing act. It's not, hey, I just bought $1 million in gumballs, so I'm going to make $2 million on them. Because if I don't sell $2 million in gumballs in the next 20 years, I'll be dead broke and having a bunch of gumballs sitting there rotting. And so it's important for us to always, and my job in this company is trying to see a month, 2, 3 out into the future and anticipate, hey, our needs are going to look like this. I want to be in front of them, prepared for action. But at the same time, this thing called taxes, which doesn't exist in Lemonade Stand, sometimes requires end of year expenditures to lower, the personal tax burden in the process of business, and making good, wise decisions with that money is an important thing for us to do.
You work with a lot of other businesses as well as a consultant.
I do.
Do you see a lot of entrepreneurs making the mistake of taking the money too early?
Actually, I would say the biggest mistake I see when I first walk into businesses for consulting is thinking too small and anticipating the wrong demand.
Right.
They'll use things like, hey, we always sell this tree as an example. If I'm working with a garden center, which I do a couple of them, if there's a tree that they have sold every year for the past 5, well, we assume we're going to sell just as many this year. Well, that's great. But is that the right place to put your money? What's your profitability on that tree? What other products have you not carried that you've received a lot of demand for? For example, here in Middle Tennessee, we had a massive freeze last year and a ton of small bushes froze, just dead as a doorknob. And so
a lot of plumbing burst.
A lot of plumbing burst,
right.
Specifically in our office.
Yes.
In this scenario, in an actual conversation I was having with them, it was, okay, what does this opportunity provide? What can we do to get in front of it? You've got cash at the end of the year. We've just had a huge freeze. What can you pre-order to make sure you're going to have inventory of these small bushes? Because come springtime, there's going to be hundreds of thousands of them that people are replacing, and everyone's going to sell out.
Right.
So we had to see the demand coming, even though they wanted to put that money into the old staple of trees. They needed to rethink their business and say, hey, I see a new demand coming. I need to to pivot, and they had a huge year. In fact, in this scenario, actual numbers, the vast majority of garden centers around the Southeast region saw a 12 to 15% decline in annual revenue this year because COVID had a huge boom in revenue for them because people are staying at home. They wanted to make their houses nicer.
They had to keep themselves busy and they could stay at home.
Right. So this garden center, because of the way that we prepared and planned for their future sales volume, they saw a 18% growth year over year on top of the COVID years. And so
without you speaking into their life, they would not have thought of that.
I cannot say what they would not or would have thought of, but I will say that our planning sessions together, I didn't know that their desire was to go sell the staple tree. But at the same time, I did see a bunch of dead bushes, and I brought some outside thinking into their traditions.
You saw the outside of their bottle.
A lot of times, outside thinking in traditional ways of business is what takes a small company who's struggling to make it, where the owners, they're not taking their money too early because they don't have the money to take. They're just trying to keep payroll going and keep their bills covered. And they're taking what they can, working 70 hours a week. And the biggest change for them is when we begin to be strategic and planning and have a 2 or 3 year plan for growth. Several companies have gone from the owners not having enough money to cover the end of year needs to, we have to sit down and have planning sessions on how do they spend that last $300,000 or $400,000 at the end of a year to make sure that they don't have huge tax burdens personally, because a lot of them are S corps or LLCs. And we have gotten the tone has changed to now, what do I want? How do I spend all this money? You know, I've got everything I need and there's all this extra money left over. A lot of that has to do with proper planning of capital usage, understanding cash flow. Understanding cash flow is something that is the bigger part of the picture, even than profitability. A lot of the times I could be 80% profitable on a product, but only sell 3 a year. Mm-hmm. That doesn't keep me in business because it's unsustainable. I could have a 4% profit, a la Walmart, McDonald's, those kind of places, but sell billions of dollars annually, and I'm in an extremely vibrant, successful business. Mm-hmm. And so it's not about profitability nearly as much as what generates cash flow and how do I use that cash flow to move our company forward in a strategic direction. And so all this is lemonade stand as an adult.
Right, right. And it's funny because you mentioned maybe the biggest problem of an entrepreneur or somebody in another business, like the businesses you work with other than ours,
right, being
inside of their own bottle, you know?
No, we struggle, even our company.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Is that something, you know, other people on the outside looking at what we do and saying, hey, how about this? Because that did happen to us in the past year, somebody coming to me and saying, hey, have you guys thought about this kind of a product? And it was like, duh.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. By all means, the minute I think that I can see my company clearly independently is the minute I begin to fall apart.
Right.
And that's true of any business owner I've worked with. So I've gone into several consulting opportunities, and the consistent theme of that opportunity is, hey, we're getting you in. We need to see a 4% lift in revenue this year. So we'd like to get you to help us with that. I'm like, 4%? That's your goal of bringing me in as a 4% growth in revenue. So in other words, you're not really willing to make changes. Mm-hmm. You just think that somebody coming in who has done this before, helped other companies be successful, will get you that 4% growth that you're looking for. The problem is you think you've got it all together already. Mm-hmm. And the minute you think you've got it all together and you only need to see a 4% increase is the minute that a consultant's going to fail and fall on their face, because they're not going to be able to speak enough change to you that you'll be willing to listen to actually transition your company to the next stage. So every company has a ceiling. If I do it on my own without any outside help, this is as big as I can get. Right. Different industries have different ceilings. Restaurants might be $400,000 a year. Lighting industry might be $2 million a year. If we talk about electrical companies, it's 1 1/3. We can go through a lot of different industries and say, hey, this is kind of that mom and pop cap on what that company can make before they begin to hit those ceilings. And the job of a consultant is to come in and say, okay, hey, ceiling 1 might be $2 million, but ceiling 2 is 5. If we can break through this first ceiling and change how you think about your business and build some systems that help you to scale, then we can get you to 5. And oh, by the way, did you know that after 5, you're looking at $12 million as the next major ceiling? Because at 12 million, you're going to have an HR department. You're going to have to hire people according to certain, processes. You'll be at 50 plus employees at that point. So you got some new legal restrictions, tax accounting responsibilities, things like that. So, hey, we've got to build a bigger system to scale from 12 to 30. And so every company finds that that hit point and you bring in consultants at that point in time to tell you, this is how you go to your next ceiling. Now, how different would a business that averages $400,000 a year as a restaurant be if they could generate $2 million? Because they've been able to scale and develop systems that allow for them to grow and get outside of their box. And so consulting is hard with companies that think they have it all together. In my case,
is that a common pushback though that you get from people?
They never believe.
You just don't understand our business.
They never believe that they're in their own way.
Really?
No one believes that I'm the biggest problem in my company.
Right.
The minute they begin to address that is the minute they can grow again. So I go in and I don't get the resistance of, I don't want to listen to you. I get the resistance of, hey, you know what? It's always worked for me in the past. And I don't think I'm ready to make that change yet. I appreciate you saying that to me. We'll look at that in the future. I get comments like that. Like, hey, you know what? There's a lot in this industry. I know you know business, but there's a lot of things you don't understand. So I would really like for us to table that for now. Let's talk about something that I get. I know I need to improve my cost centers around staffing. How do I improve those?
Do you get kind of bolstery at that point, or you kind of go along with their flow?
No, I don't do either. I typically finish out that conversation and then I wait for them to call me back.
Right.
And 80% of the time, if I don't reach back out to them, they're not going to reach back out to me because they realized from that initial couple of interactions that I'm not looking to make them feel good about how they run their business. I'm looking to help them rethink their strategies and directions and efforts. And I have the history, obviously, with the other companies I've consulted that have done a great job of follow through on the things that we've exposed and identified together. Man, they've grown. I've got one company specifically that has grown from $400,000 in annual revenue. In 5 years, they're going to beat 3.5 this year.
Nice.
Well, that's an incredible growth trajectory because they had been at under $500,000 for almost 20 years in this business. It had been mom and pop working full time. And I'm like, hey, let's get it to where you guys can retire. What does retirement look like for you? Okay, let's build a 5-year plan of retirement and let's get you out of this business with enough to either sell the company and live or let it run because we've developed a clean and operating system. And so here we are now 5 years into this relationship and they are spending 80% of their time taking care of their parents, taking care of their grandchildren, not working the shops, not doing the jobs. They still work, but because they want to. But they can take the time they need for their stage of life. And I love it. It is the most fulfilling thing for me as a consultant to watch people make good decisions and then change their quality of life.
To what they want to do.
Yeah. If they wanted to stay working, they could. But they don't have to.
Right.
I don't plan on ever leaving work myself. But at the same time, it's something that I do think that we will see some great opportunities in our business to make those decisions as we continue to grow. Right. Back to the initial point. Yeah. I know for a fact that if I think I've got it all right, that I'm going to be walking our business into a place of my ego, not a place of our growth.
That's where I come in. That's where I come in. Hey, you might be off on this.
I don't know. You and I are holding hands in this model here.
Yeah. But typically, I'm always the quiet one,
right?
Because I feel like I'm listening. I'm in a trio, a fraternity of guys, you and Marvin,
right,
who've been down this road, who've done this. You've got a deeper understanding. I'm just, I'm learning a lot. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I'm willing to admit I know what my limits are.
Right.
And I guess that's what you're talking about is knowing what your limits are.
Right. As an example, so you alluded to a minute ago an idea that somebody outside of our company brought to the table, and we're like, oh, that's a genius idea. We'd like to implement it.
Yeah.
I have never launched a product of this scale before.
Right. So we're kind of doing this together for the first time.
We are. And so for me to find someone to consult me in the launch of what we would consider to be a nationally competitive product, I would love to go meet with people who have done it before, who could sit there and tell me, hey, we've tried it these 9 ways. It didn't work. Here's a good strategy for launching a new product in the marketplace, because I'm just as blind as anybody at that specific feature function.
Which, by the way, Mr. Owner of Groove Life, we'd love to talk to you. I can't remember your name right now.
If anybody knows, I think his name's Matt something.
Yeah, something like that. We should probably get your name right first to know what that is before we put it out on public like
if anybody knows him and has access to him,
I've reached out to him on LinkedIn.
He has launched a national product, actually a global product.
Right here in Spring Hill.
Right here local to me. I'd love to sit down and just buy him lunch somewhere cheap, McDonald's, maybe Taco Bell.
Let's take him to Perry's, okay? Make it nice.
And we I would love to unpack his mind. So again, business relationships are huge when you know what your limitations are and you say, hey, I need to bring in someone. Now, counterpoint. And I think this is leading into the next piece of what we want to talk about in this podcast. There are a lot of people out there that espouse themselves as business experts.
They influencers and thought leaders.
Yeah, sure.
They're just everywhere.
They're selling this concept of I am a full-time consultant. I can be your coach. I can be your trainer. I can fix your business. What are you doing? And then the solutions that they offer, I've seen and read a lot of different things. Man, I get it. They want business to sound really complicated. So you have to spend a lot of money with them to uncomplicate it for you.
Right.
Business is not complicated.
To be fair, though, a lot of entrepreneurs go into business overcomplicating the crap out of it.
Absolutely.
Right?
And then these thought leaders come in and support that overcomplication.
Right.
And I get more frustrated when people begin to listen to thought leaders that are making it hard for them to be successful.
Right.
Business can be simple. It can be uncomplicated. In fact, if I were in bananas, if I were in socks, if I were in the business of marketing, print media, if I were in the business of lighting, if I were in the restaurant business, do you know that all of them have the exact same standards for success? All businesses do. You have a product that you acquire or manufacture. You market that product. You sell that product. You have personnel that do the work to help you acquire, manufacture, market, and sell that product. Now, sometimes it's all the same person, but business is business. And you know what? The more you can scale that, and you now have 2 people acquiring and 2 people manufacturing and 2 people marketing and 2 people selling, you can hypothetically increase the rate of business. Maybe not double.
Yeah.
Maybe only a 30% growth. But the math is always right. If you simplify business down to the base standards, you can give me any product in the world, and within a few minutes, I can tell you this is a strategy because it matches all other strategies. Mm-hmm. What these business and thought leaders do is they tell you business is so hard. But if you spend money with me, if you come to my seminars, if you buy my books, I will teach you the 7-step formula.
That's right. To overnight success.
To being a success.
That's
and
right.
You will be driving the car that I rented.
That's right.
For today, for this video shoot. I have this really nice Ferrari. It only cost me $482 for today. And I'm going to take my video beside this $400,000 car because I want you to believe that I'm worth it.
Do you think people see through that, though?
I
think
actually
more
don't.
More. Really?
Because if they saw through that,
they wouldn't be successful.
These guys would not be influencing people in bad directions. And I tell you, what happens to a person when they listen to the wrong business consultant, the wrong business influencer, is they begin to make decisions because they want that person's lifestyle, that person's confidence, that person's, success rate. I mean, there's one business influencer out there that I know of and I've heard a few times. He is wholly successful because his dad was successful. Mm-hmm. We have a president of the past that he found his avenue to success through his dad's hard work. It doesn't mean he's not a smart man. In fact, that's not for today's debate. However, the point being is that, a lot of people have found success in life in really dumb ways. But for the rest of us out there that had to start with nothing and build something great, we don't have the same leg up that those people had. We have to look at it in a way that we can achieve the goals we've got. And to be honest, when they give them bad ideas and bad recommendations for running their business, it ruins their employee's life. Mm-hmm. It impacts their culture. It absorbs every bit of relationship they've got. They leave their families at home, and it's this goal of what they quote unquote, I want to be successful, so I have to work 90 hours a week in order to be successful. And you know what success is never realized? That level of success is always the next thing. Yeah. Not the current thing. And that's the thing we have to stop and say, thought influencers that teach complicated business tactics for success make it worse for the employees of the company and the leaders of the company and their families and their longevities and their peace about the work they do. Simplify work. A lot of these influencers need to go somewhere else. They don't teach good processes. They don't teach simple business. They teach because they want to sell 30 more books or 500 more seminar passes or whatever, because they're telling you, oh, only I have the magic recipe to success. Mm-hmm. And I'd be glad to sell you a bag of magic beans too if you just spend $1 million with me.
Now, to be fair, there are people out there that do have sound advice.
Oh, absolutely. And I would say, here's the thing. There are absolutely business and thought leaders that I appreciate. I love the things they say, and I'm not going to sit here and just bash all thought leaders.
Right.
I'm just going to say thought leaders that take business and say it's a 7-step process, and here's your 7 steps.
Yeah, here's a way to discern. I've come to this conclusion recently, to discern a good business thought leader. If they're using flashy videos and they got to get your attention somehow, or they're coming off with a over the top type of approach, which has really been happening, that's a red flag in my opinion, because what they're saying isn't all that impactful. You know what I mean?
Right. For me, it's not even the flashiness of the videos, which if you're watching the videos, great. But if I'm listening to the podcast, it doesn't mean anything. For me, it's the words they choose to use.
Yeah.
Phrases like, if you could just self-actualize success, or your talents are limited if you don't sit down and unpack the pure potential within your being of being the most successful businessman in your trade. Like, these words mean nothing.
Right.
And they sound huge. Man, I really want to be self-actualized and realize my potential. And I want my talents to be exposed out there for the world to see. I really want this. Oh, you use words that make me feel good. I like you.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the logic or impact
it's
of their
emotional
ability.
Inspiration.
Absolutely.
That's what it is.
And look, I totally get the whole idea that you can inspire people to success whenever they're just feeling down and lonely. And that I love inspiring my employees to the next step of the stage, but that takes relationship, not presentation. Mm-hmm. Inspiration always comes from somebody feeding you the best version of yourself directly, not somebody standing in a stage and trying to help you somehow capture your inner potential with no relationship with you.
So are you a fan of a proponent of Tony Robbins? Or you think he's one of them? Because I mean, he's the OG,
What Tony Robbins was able to do in his time was huge.
Yeah.
He was able to take a workforce that was generally worked and pushed down by the few people in success over top of them. And he was able to inspire them to get up and get out and do something. Yeah. Just go do something.
Which is good.
Great.
Yeah.
The transition has happened as we have found a voice for the workers, and the workers have begun to understand they have choices in the marketplace about how they spend their days and how they make their money. That same message has changed its tone to one of, all you need is to feel good. And that is the wrong current message for today's work. Now it needs to be, you need to calm down your mind, calm down your thinking. You can't see everything coming, but if you have a strategy for what comes and a healthy strategy for whatever comes in at you, you know how to process it, you can find success. It has much more now to do with structural and cognitive ability to anticipate and react in a healthy timeline to where it doesn't overwhelm you. That's the success that we need to hear today. And that's not what's being spoken in a lot of these Tony Robbins-esque promotional videos and things like that.
Right. He kind of gets them on the path.
Right. No issue with Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
But Tony Robbins today, I would have major issues with if this was the same message as what he was speaking in the 80s and 90s.
It has evolved.
Right.
He does the Date with Destiny 4-day thing where you're on your feet for, 15, 16 hours.
He's telling them to get out and do something.
That's
and
right.
I think that's great. Yeah. I love the idea of getting out and do something. I think everybody needs to do the next thing, whatever that is.
He'd be a cool guy to have a beer with. Who's anybody that you're following that really does hit you over that kind of hits you between the eyes that you like?
So
anybody come to mind?
Yeah. Obviously I'm huge into effective leadership, in terms of, the right way to engage your teams, the right way to see yourself as a leader. I'm really big into studying and understanding those things. The problem is there aren't many new people that teach it as well as Zig Ziglar or John Maxwell or Jeffrey Gitomer, these guys from the 80s and 90s and early 2000s who really harped on what effective leadership should look like are the guys I still read and study and spend my time marinating myself in. It doesn't have to be new principles because these principles are thousands of years old. Business is not complicated. There isn't, your business in the 21st century has got to look completely different than it did in the 20th century. No, Business is the same set of standards. Your people are going to look different. Your ways of handling like paid time off and benefits and 401ks has got to change because
marketing platforms,
right? Marketing platforms. But the root nature of business is identical now as it was 2,000 years ago. Nothing has changed. And we make or acquire products. We market those products. We sell and transact that sale. We have money and we go make more products with it. That's the same as a blacksmith in the 1400s. We just have learned how to scale much better in today's world than they knew then because we're a global society now, but the business functions are the same. So Jeffrey Gitomer, Zig Ziglar, John Maxwell, three, I love their leadership thought processes. And if you compared the three of them, they're from completely different backgrounds, different faith sectors, but their principles are practically identical in terms of what makes an effective leader. And you know what? If I'm going to be a business owner and manager, it's not just about being a strategist.
Right.
Because my business would be limited to me then. If I want to really grow, I have to learn how to create a vibrant and healthy team that look to me as the person that they get their next marching order from, not because I demand it, because that's where they know they can go to get the right next step. And that's who I need to be. leadership is fundamental to business success. Part of what I do in my consulting is not just fix your business. It's let's take a look at how you lead. What's your turnover rate look like? How do you manage when employees are mad? What does accountability look like in your space? How have you held people accountable in the past? You know what? Do people understand their paychecks? Effective leaders help people to know why they're getting what they're getting and why they've earned what they've earned. A man should be worthy of his hire as a biblical principle. I totally believe that business owners today need to understand that companies where you have an employee who makes the company a significant amount of money needs to treat that employee with a significant amount of money. If they struggle to find revenue in their job, then we need to rethink their job in a way to help generate or support revenue generation to justify their role in the company so that they understand when I tell them, hey, you're making $20 an hour with me. This is what you've done for my company to earn that $20. If you want to make $22 an hour, here's what we need to do as a business to justify your $22 an hour. We're in this together. I want you to make $100 an hour, but we're only going to get there if you can step up and help me to find the success it takes to generate enough revenue to justify paying you that amount of money.
Right.
How much do you want to make? Great. I want to get you there too. Let's talk about how. That's what effective leadership looks like in a compensation manner versus, well, the job pays $15 an hour. If you don't want it, go find somewhere else to work. That is a terrible, terrible engagement of humans. And it's totally manipulative to the understanding of what their potential is. And that's terrible.
This is why, like, if you were to write a book, what would it be on? You know, this is exactly, I always talk about the hesitant social entrepreneur that has a lot to give to the world. Like everything, this tirade you just went off on. Okay.
I apologize.
I'm seeing clip after clip after clip after clip of just, wonderful nuggets that nobody's saying or nobody's hearing. And it's like, the frustrating part for me is you're a reluctant social entrepreneur, much like, Mr. Joe Agresti with the Dream Motor Group. Somebody actually the other day told me that they've suggested that he needs to do a podcast. And I'm going, yes, you need to start sharing these things with the world. This is your gifting. People need to hear this. You have to be the yin to the yang of all these influencers out there that are peddling, basic nonsense.
Right.
Some of them are very successful. Some of them have done a lot of things. Grant Cardone is a virtual billionaire, but he made it off the back of sales training for the car business, which is now he's abandoned. And now we're going to get into eventually we'll get into some of these guys, but there's a guy who's coming out of up the ranks who's filling that void that Cardone once had, in my opinion. And he's using the Howard Stern effect perfectly. But there's a lot of stuff, a lot of things that aren't being said. And, a lot of you just don't, not that you don't care about people seeing you that way, but my gosh, I see this not like nothing but just a whole pile of potential. You know what I mean? And that's what's frustrating to me.
Crap is a pile of potential as well. You go out there and look at a cow pad, you're like, hey, that's potential grass. There's a potential tree going to grow there.
But the first time I met you have no, all these people, they want to dress sharply. They have the certain look. They got to make sure, you looked on LinkedIn and you see a lot of women that have these huge followings, but every photo is perfect. It's airbrushed. It's like they went to glamour shots.
Right.
I'm dating myself. But, they have these professional photos and these lengthy posts saying, stuff that kind of makes you go, yeah, no duh.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
You know, and they reiterate their stories. There's one woman on there who talks about, when I got fired back in, it's okay, I've heard about you getting fired 8,000 times now.
Right.
You know, where are you going with this? But everybody's just, you know, bootlicking in the comments section. I don't get it. You know, she's pretty. She's got, you know, a very good presentation. And it's sad that kind of matters, because here we are, two guys with dad bods who really couldn't care. You know, we dress ourselves, you know, we grab whatever's there, right?
You might dress yourself.
Right.
I'm not allowed to.
But, you know, the first time I met you, your first physical impression was kind of like, okay, it's a dude, you know, and,
right.
And then you open your mouth and I was like, oh my goodness, this guy, he's got some ammo. You know what I mean? And then, you know, we went to a big closing, if you remember, back in 2018.
Yep.
For a large local college. Guys, this was no deal to scoff at. This is a big deal. Like, if we didn't get this deal,
sales opportunity, right?
Sales opportunity. It would have
right.
been life and death for the business if we didn't get it. And it was huge. You're
right.
sitting in front of the CFO, dressed how you're dressed like that right now.
Right.
No auspices. And it's like, I always said this guy could speak CFO. And it's like, man, you closed the deal, man.
Well,
you know?
It's true.
You know? But I mean, again, you were talking back then, you didn't have the confidence to step out on your own. You were still consulting businesses, but there was something holding you back, and that was the fact you've never owned a business yourself.
Right.
Right.
Right. And I think
I can appreciate that.
Obviously, there's multiple things that go into the difference between me and the airbrushed girl on the video. Right. One of the things that exists out there is what are you selling? These people with the cars and the flashy looks and the confident personality and the same story every single time they talk, it might be a great story. In fact, I've got a friend who lost some family members due to hospital oversight, and they have gone to hospitals all over the country and told the exact same story 1,000 times, because every hospital needs to hear the impacts of their oversight on the well-being of their patients. Yeah. And that's a good message to hear. And so I do think that sometimes repetitive messages are great depending on the audiences, but the difference between me and them is they're trying to sell themselves. Mm-hmm. They're trying to prove that they are good enough to claim the influences that they have gained. And so this constantly, I have to prove even more. I'm carrying the weight of my own glory, and I have to prove that I can hold it up. I am in no different from them in this manner. I just feel like the proof has to come before the message, not when the message is out there. So for me, I have this feeling that I should own a company for a season and implement my standards of success and culture and growth and sales and acquisitions and run it for a while to be able to feel like when I tell somebody else who's got 20 years of owning a company, hey, you need to change directions. I've done it, and I've had great success with it as a consultant. But there's always a sense of me that I've never personally lived through what it would take to become a national voice in this, or even a regional voice in this, because I was unable to say, I've been in your shoes. Right. I have not done this. So if glory comes to me, I won't be able to stand up under the weight of trying to prove myself because I've never done it. Right. So now I'm building that foundation as a business owner, as a partner.
And those foundations are strong.
And they're great. We're having a great success in the beginning of this business. Yeah. That's different than if I were to write a book.
Right.
You said, if I were to write a book, what would I write a book about? Right. And I would absolutely, my heart as an owner of a business, as a consultant to businesses, is not the well-being of the business owners. It's the well-being of the employees that work for the business. Because here's what happens. If you take the mindset of the employees are the most important part of the company, because you could have 400,000 employees and one CEO. Where's the weight of the company? It's on the employees. Yeah. If those people are excited to come to work to work every day, happy about the job they have, understanding their role, what accountability looks like for them, expectations, what their compensation is, if they come in and they have a clear plan of attack for growing the business, they're going to take great care of the customers. They're going to protect the company's assets and values. They're going to ensure that the products they're producing are the best quality that they know how to make. And at that point, the owners will always be the derivative benefit of a great workforce, not the primary purpose of a good consultant. Right. And so for me, I would love to hash out what it takes to create a culture through business principles and strategy that allows for people to get up in the morning and feel like the work they're going to is where they want to be, and they want to protect and grow the business. Now, we've only got 16 employees.
Yeah.
And in the last 2 years of being in business, we've lost 4 employees.
Mm-hmm.
2 of them came back within months. The grass was greener. They went in a different direction. And then they're like, hey, you know what? We really missed the culture we had there, knowing what our job was and knowing the expectations. We want to come back. And so what have we lost? We've lost either 2 or 4, depending. But that tells me that the way that we run our culture for our employees, while there's always frustrations in every job, they get what our goals are and they buy into them, and they're going to give me the best version of themselves. And our growth and success of a company might be 10% based on my ability to strategize or anticipate direction correctly. But really, it comes down to the fact that we have 16 employees that love what they do, that come in every day, do their work, and they run and grow success for us. And any business that sees it any differently really is missing out on the real value of their company. And that is that every human out there has potential to be better as they grow than they are today.
Right.
We all have that potential for growth and development. And if I feed that potential, then I will end up with the exact same staff in a completely different place. One more story real quick. I took over a retail store back 2012 or 13 in a suburb of a very violent and crime-filled town. This retail store had 16 employees in it, and I was given the task. When I got sent there, I'd proven my ability as a manager in this company. It was a large publicly traded company. And I got sent there to quote unquote clean house through standard principles. It was I had to go through all the rules and regulations to clean house, but my job was to basically start over with a new staff. And in 2 years, turn that team into something that was actually a successful part of the company, because it had been just the bottom of every list out there in terms of performance standards for 5 years at that point.
Right.
And I got sent to the impossible location, and I disagreed with my leadership. They had all of these you need to write up 3 people in the next 2 months, and we need to have at least 5 terminations by this time because we're trying to help you make the hard decisions. Here's your job standards. I said, no, I'm not going to fire a single person. Once I was in the position, there was very little they could do because they had to go through all the same processes with me of accountability and discipline because of the company structured. I took the exact same 16 people, changed how they felt about the company just through conversations and investing in them and helping them grow. We became one of the top 7 retail locations in the country.
Mm-hmm.
For 4 months straight as part of the standards within a year and a half. It took me 18 months to turn that business around from the worst of the worst to a top 7 performer. In fact, we won several awards for that top 7 performance. I got some really nice steak dinners.
Nice.
And the end result was I didn't have to change a single person. One person did quit because they couldn't handle expectations and accountability.
Right. Which happens.
One person I had to get right next to firing, and then they turned their life around.
Right.
They're like, you know what? I'm going to try to stay. And they stayed, and they became very successful. I promoted more people out of that location to managing other locations than any manager had in the state of Tennessee in the last 5 years. 7 of my 18 people became managers at other locations within the first 2 years of me being there.
Wow.
That is not about my success. That's not about how cool I am. That has to do with, hey, it matters how your employees feel about their work. You create a place they want to go to work, and everything changes for them, their families, their livelihood, their future potential. They now had Christmases that were well paid for and vacation time that they could take off and actually go on vacation because they had the money in the bank for vacation because they had found that success feels good. And I had found that when they feel successful, I was doing very well in my role.
Right. So with that being said, we're going to take a break.
Who?
Yeah, because we're doing commercials now. So we're going to be right back. You're listening to the Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast with our guest, John Woerner. See you in a minute. Hey, Middle Tennessee electricians, handy women and men, and just those of you needing better commercial LED lighting solutions. Yeah, I know, there's so many of you. I have to tell you, there's another option than just the big orange and blue box stores now. Try j2lighting.com. At j2lighting.com, we have the latest technology in all types of commercial LED lighting, from UFO high base, drawers, area lights, and shoeboxes, right on down to a slimline wall pack that doesn't look like a fist coming off the wall like most other wall packs do. You get what I'm saying, right? Many of our fixtures are wattage and color temperature selectable, which means you have more control over the brightness and appearance in your dark spaces. Check us out at j2lighting.com for a great local source for your commercial LED lighting ideas, even full color light show dreams. Yeah, totally. That's the letter J and number 2 lighting.com. j2lighting.com. All right, we're coming back. This is the Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast that you're listening to. I'm going to put something out there. You ever have the notion that you've always, even though you've never met somebody, maybe it's a celebrity, but you feel like you've known them? I have that feeling, and it's going to sound weird. Dennis Quaid has always given me that same feeling, right? And I feel like, because I think he lives here in town, I'm putting it out there, man. Anybody who knows or knows his handlers or his manager, we'd love to have him on. I think he lives maybe up in Franklin or somewhere near here because he's got a music career. You have something like that where you feel like you know somebody? For Courtney, it's Tom Selleck. Not because it's the sexual nature or anything like that. She says I've always just felt like he's my buddy.
FYI, Courtney is his wife.
My wife.
We need to clarify this real quickly here. No, I'm not often starstruck. I will tell you.
Not starstruck. You just feel like you have a connection with the person.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. I feel like I have a connection with Dick Van Dyke.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, I feel like he is one of those people that if I were able to sit in a room and just talk to him, we would have the grandest of times because I use words like grandest in my sentences. That's like 1960s talk, and that's what he's from. Yeah. I think the other person who I would just love is Alan Alda. I think he and I, while politically we're very different from each other, boy, his banter. Yeah. I love to banter. I love quick-witted, fun. I would enjoy them in terms of just spending time with them. Like, let's go fishing together.
Right. Grab beer.
That's great. I don't know that we would have like a deep, intimate relationship of any nature, but it would be great to spend time with them. Other than that, I'm still struggling with this Dennis Quaid thing.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know. Ever since I've seen him in like Inner Space, The Rookie.
See, I don't even know who he is.
Oh, man.
You're really dating yourself.
He was in Wyatt Earp with Kevin Costner. He played Doc Holliday.
Yeah.
You've seen The Rookie, where he's an older baseball player, pitcher?
No.
You don't know Dennis Quaid?
No.
Really? Married to Meg Ryan?
I know her.
Yeah.
You've got mail.
For a while. Yeah.
Yeah. See, that's all I know her from. But
he was in a great movie. Yeah, he's been in a lot of stuff.
Well, then you should meet him.
He's been in The Right Stuff, I think, or something like that. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, I need to meet all the Titans players. I need to meet Mike Keith. Like all of my like starstruckness comes from football, not from like movie stars or music stars or anything. But you get me a football player in here, I'll be like jaw on the floor. I won't be able to talk. I'll be that awkward girl in middle school who just like turns away and walks off.
Well, we had Chris Hope.
You
met him.
I did. It was really awesome to meet him too.
Right.
He didn't bring his Super Bowl rings though, so that made me a little disappointed.
He signed Marcus's one of our other clients, Stronger Than My Father podcast. Check it out. He signed his terrible towel because Chris Hope was on the Steelers.
That's cool. Yeah. It's pretty awesome. All right. Anyways.
Yes. So getting into this, you and I discuss a lot of these influencers and stuff like that. Here we have a gentleman. I've pulled it up and made it so everybody can hear it. And if you're watching this, you'll be able to see it on the screen. We're just going to react. You've never seen these.
No.
And occasionally I send you some people and some of the outrageous things that they put out online. We'll start with, this is the guy I was talking about before. I feel like he is working the Howard Stern effect angle. And if you've never heard me talk about it before, the Howard Stern effect is getting people to like you and not like you, you still win. So there is an element to getting haters. And then it helps with the algorithm and it helps you get more exposure, things of that nature. This guy's doing a bang up job with that.
Well, I find it intriguing. So I don't know if they can see the picture on the screen, but I'll describe it real quickly. He is standing, flexing all of his muscles. He clearly is either on certain performance enhancing drugs or just worked out because
only speculating.
Only speculating. Yeah. But his blood vessels are hugely projected from his arm muscles, as it were. He's got two Asian style yellow chairs. He's got some very intriguing neon lighting behind him and a bunch of lions and triangles around the room.
Yes.
He's truly trying to think of all the different markets that might watch him, that might identify with one of those standards
Yes.
as his background for what he's portraying. So
And the fact of the matter that we're going to be talking about him here, he's going to eat it up and love it because it helps his algorithm.
Absolutely.
Not that we're going to be hating on him or anything like that.
Right. But I think it fascinating. Like here I am sitting on a couch wearing boots and a microphone in front of my face. He is very much more focused on reaching different market segments with the way he has his space laid out.
What would you anticipate that market segment to be? Okay, we're just going to say it's Andy Elliott.
I don't know who he is.
He is an up and coming influential sales trainer, mostly for highly transactional markets, the car business, solar, that kind of thing, door to door.
All right.
And I believe he's filling the hole that Grant Cardone once had. Cardone still has it,
right?
But he's so heavily into real estate these days that I think he's just kind of, it is what it is. So he likes, real estate's made him very wealthy,
right?
But old Andy is actually coming up. This is not the video we're going to play. I just realized it's 4.5 minutes long. We'll go with this one. He does a lot of these types of videos where he's in a seminar kind of format, and they'll have some sort of a shocking headline like Andy exposes veteran salesman. And, the person that he's exposing, sometimes they'll put a pixelated image over their face because either they're, the person's embarrassed or they didn't give permission, to give their likeness.
Right.
So here we go. This is Andy exposes veteran salesman.
But I love the vehicle. It's a great car. You've been awesome. I just want to think about it, and I'm going to get back with you.
Okay, well, sounds good. Either way, whatever you need, just let me know, and be happy to work with you, and whatever works best for you.
So you're going to let me roll?
I shouldn't, but...
Hold on. When I was a salesman and I didn't know how to overcome an objection, it ate me alive. Dan, you don't want to not know how to handle this, am I right?
Correct.
He fucking wants to know, but no one's teaching him. Dan, here's how you handle it. When somebody says, I need to think about it, you simply say, of course you need to think about it. I haven't given you enough information not to think about it. What I'd like to do is give you a quick 5-minute proposal of all the numbers, so when you go home, you truly have something to think about. Would that be fair? Take their ass inside, sit them down, get a worksheet, get their trade keys, get a credit sheet. Next thing you know, they're buying a freaking car. How many cars you sell a month?
There you go.
Huh.
I know that that is not your style of selling. You're not a hard sale guy.
No.
You're a hard closer. You're a relationship guy.
Yes, but
Tactigic relationship guy.
Tactigic.
Yes.
Ooh.
Yes. You see what I did there?
That's a new word.
Yes. Tactical and strategic, just in case you're not following along.
We call that a merged word.
A merged word.
Or a merd.
That's right. Tactigic. Remember it.
Tactigic. Yeah. I like that. So, man, I tell you.
And I tell you,
if we were in the 1990s, that sales effort works.
Right.
And more importantly than that, we have to walk into every market understanding some base principles of the customer, not the seller. I know nothing about the customer he's talking to. He's just giving an example of arbitrary customer, but there's something that we have to understand. Customer anxiety is highest in 2 places in the retail world. They walk into the door in cell phone stores and car dealerships, more anxious and ready for a fight than anywhere except for maybe like the front 5 feet of like a big box store. They got the guy selling you the disc television service. It's just, hey, who do you use for your television? Other than that moment, which is probably very combative for most people, cell phone stores and car dealerships, people walk in with a preconceived expectation they're going to be tried to be hard sold.
Yeah.
People are going to try to trick them into things they don't want, and their defenses are all up.
oh yeah,
The problem of his approach in this scenario, while it sounded really good to all those salesmen who are also dealing with the fact that they're not the customers, they are the salesmen trying to close the deal, and no one's ever taught them how to say better words than the words they already use. What he leaves off that whole thing is if that customer leads in with, I'm going to have to think about it, you've already missed your sales moment. If you get to that statement, you have not taken care of that customer's anxiety first, lowered their walls against you secondly, before you even pitch a car. Because here's the thing, we don't buy a car that you position to me. I either walk in the door knowing what I want, or I walk in looking for a salesman that I can trust. Right. If I'm on the consumer side, I want to know either, hey, you've got that Honda Civic, I want that Honda Civic. I don't care which salesman talks to me or how they position me. That's the car I want. I'm just going to be going for a cool deal. I'm coming in, and then it's all about working the deal. You know what? Those guys are 1 out of 50.
Right.
Everybody else comes into the dealership knowing they need a car, but they just want to have one person they can talk to that they feel good, that they can trust to not screw them in the process of selling them a car. And because of the years and years of bad sales tactics like this one in the car dealership space, we don't find success if you get to the point where they say, I've got to go home and think about it. You've missed your opportunity to lower their defenses, learn their name, learn about their family, because it's going to come out as, hey, man, I love what you're doing. Even if we don't do this car, we're going to get something from you. We need to talk about what the best solution is for us. Thank you for the time. That's going to be the nature of the conversation. I have sold literally to tens of thousands of customers in my sales experience background. This is ineffective in today's sales world.
I would agree. And actually, when I sold cars, my approach was very relationship based, as you know.
Yep.
I learned a lot of the hard close tactics and strategic questions to ask to kind of figure out, uncovering the objection and the real objection and trying to find a way around it. But, I was also the guy that I got a feel for. You have to go home and think about it then.
Right.
All right.
Right.
Here's my card.
Right.
Let me know when you want to, you mind if I call you at the end of the day just to kind of answer any questions, that kind of a thing. Give them the space. And typically I became a very highly recommended person on Facebook.
Yeah. But even in that, the whole, I have to go home and think about it thing is not a response to a sale.
Right.
That is hey, I need to talk to my wife. I need to work through this. But you've already sold them on you. They're coming back to you to buy whenever they buy.
Right.
That's the thing that you have to get to the point of is that conversation doesn't sound like I have to go home and think about it.
Right.
It's like, hey, man, I love what you're telling me. I think I like that car. I also like this one over here.
Yeah.
But this is a family decision. We've got to work through this. And my comment always back to them is like, look, you've got my card. Is there anything else that you need from me to be able to talk to your wife about it? Let's talk about the things she's going to be interested in, or the thing your husband's going to be interested in, or your family's going to want to know about this car. Is there anything I can help set you up for success in that conversation?
Right.
Then I teach them how to sell to their family, which then it's a done deal. Now they're on my side selling the car to the family, and we've already closed the deal.
And this guy is a great guy. You got to come meet him.
Yeah. Right. I'm going to throw out a number for the sake of a number, and you can quantifiably agree with me. I close over 80% of my sales interactions.
I would say it's higher.
Yes, but 80% is a justifiable one. I think we're probably in the 90s.
And he's being modest. Okay.
Right.
He's not we're blowing smoke or anything. I can, surely bolster what your claim. I could substantiate it because I've been around you.
Right.
I consider myself to be a good salesman. My problem has always been in this business, exposure and opportunities. But whenever I get an opportunity, it typically turns out to be good. But you've cultivated a lot of opportunity. Might have been because somebody leaked a video early, but those opportunities were optimized. You never squandered any one of them, and they really did work out. Especially seeding this business moving forward.
Right.
Those relationships are still strong today.
Yep.
And that's it's relational selling. Moving on to the next one, and the thing about Andy is the fact that I call it bro fraternity sales selling tactics. Right. It's kind of like what we're doing. Here's another guy, and he's a local guy. Hey, we are the mostly Middle Tennessee business podcast.
Yep.
His name is Coach Michael Burt.
Okay.
He's the lovable coach. Everyone knows him typically who's in business here in Middle Tennessee. And he's built his business off of coaching other businesses. Right.
Okay. Right.
So here's a video we're going to pull up with Mr. Coach Michael Burt.
I made $1 million in an hour selling a $500 product. I went from unknown to known. Do you know what I had to do to get that deal? I had been working that relationship with Cardone for 7 years. I'm sitting in his office across from him, and I said, do you think I'm good enough to speak at 10X? He said, absolutely. I said, then why haven't you asked me? He said, well, I spent $4 million on Mandalay Bay, and I need famous people, and you're not famous yet. You're good, but you're not famous. And I said, you're trying to sell tickets, right? I said, we're friends, and I like to help my friends. If I bought $100,000 worth of tickets right now, would that ensure that I speak on that stage? He said, yeah, I think that'll help. I'd like to buy 50 tickets, 50 VIP tickets at $2,000 a piece. I took those tickets from $2,000, I repackaged them, I repurposed them, I put my coaching program with it, and I sold those tickets for $5,000 a ticket. Made $250,000 of revenue. I'm $150,000 of profit. Get on the stage, 10,000 people, make $1 million. Was that a good investment, yes or no? Would you have bet on you like that? What happens when you accomplish?
So, yeah.
I made $1 million in an hour.
It's not, but
$500 product.
I don't know how he made $1 million in an hour, but I don't know where that came into play.
Man.
So here, okay, let me also preface the fact that here we are, two guys that are building a business.
Yes.
Okay. We are in the fight and in the mix every single day. We show up with whatever clothes we have on our back. We're both dads. We both got dad bods. We're not.
You've really emphasized the dad bod.
We
thing so
are.
far today.
I mean, let's be real, right? I mean, that's what we are. We're not exactly,
but I have
GQ.
lovable eyes.
You have lovable eyes. You're a huggable guy.
Yeah, very huggable.
We're not exactly, stepping off the pages of GQ.
Right.
Okay. We're in the mix of it
But
every
see, here's
day.
the thing. All these influencers so far you've shown me are bald.
True. That's the thing. That's why I grew my hair back.
You don't want to be.
I have of it.
Yes, you've got some enough.
Yeah, it's a lot thicker than I realize. That's what she said. But where's my
back to
here? It's a lot thicker than I realize. The CSI stinger. You CSI? Okay, never mind.
Yeah,
you're looking at me like you normally look at me.
Yeah.
Why am I in this room with you, Jim?
Yeah.
Okay, so reactions.
Well, I mean, you told me today that you'll be showing me some influencers and just wanted my thoughts on what they're saying.
Yeah.
Obviously, one of my challenges is how influencers choose to speak and what they are communicating. Mm-hmm. He used the word I didn't count. Easily 20 plus times in that statement. Mm-hmm. Great. If you're telling a story about what you've been able to do because you're trying to make a bigger point, totally support stories with the word I. He makes 0 points in that entire interaction. The very end, his last comment was the semblance of you don't believe in yourself as much as I do. Mm-hmm. That's the key to success? Believing in yourself? I'm sorry. That's a little bit ridiculous. You have to believe in something. Totally agree with that. You need to believe in good standards, good practices, integrous operations in your business. You need to believe that you're making good decisions and stand on the decisions that you make based on the fact that something outside of you is informing you that these are good decisions. Right. But that entire spiel that he just posted, I don't know why he chose to post that one as a marketing exercise for his company, because all he did is tell a story about a interaction that could have gone 2 ways. And here's the thing. I think if this is a true story, which I'm taking it at face value that it is, I have 0 idea if it is, that he spent $100,000 on the spot with Grant Cardone, that he already had somewhere in his mind that he was going to turn these things and package them for $5,000 and resell them. Hypothetically, he has enough business prowess to think about that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Why would he be marketing this video?
I don't know.
As something that goes out there.
It's a beat your chest kind of moment.
Yeah, it's a beat your chest kind of moment. And it didn't tell anybody anything. No one's going to buy what he's selling if he's just talking about himself. We've all known the people who are totally focused on what they've done, what they can do, and how much do we listen to them after the first 20 minutes of a conversation? Right. We don't. See, here's the thing. If I was going to put a little, 30-second segment or 1-minute segment of a presentation in front of a room of people, I will want that 1 minute to be something that could change anybody who's listens to's focus and direction, because when they say, hey, that guy made a lot of sense to me, they'll come back and they'll watch another video. They'll buy another ticket. They'll come simply because I'm there. Cardone's comment, you're not famous.
Right.
There's a reason why. People might listen to 3 or 4 things you have to say and then move on, because they realize that you're really about yourself, not about them. And no one's going to stop and listen to, in today's world, people who beat their own chest for success. And that's why I'm so hesitant to get into this space, because I don't see success coming from that. Also, his math to get to $1 million didn't exist in the whole story. Like, I don't know where he came to $1 million. Right. No idea. Was that like his speaking fees at the place where he's begging to be a part of it? If I were someone selling stage time at a major convention and somebody's begging to be on it, I'm not going to pay them a $750,000 speaking fee.
That's a really high speaking fee.
It is. Yeah. And I'm going to go out and find them, and then they tell me how much they charge.
Right.
If someone's coming to me wanting to speak on a big stage, I'm like, hey, this is your opportunity to get your name out there. I'll pay you $50,000.
Right.
The math doesn't work out in my brain. That's a totally side message.
So if somebody sets out to be a speaker, that this is what I want to do.
Yep.
There's a red flag there. Now, if they, by proxy, because of the content they're putting out that is so value oriented, like The next gentleman I'm going to show you,
Right.
you're very aware of.
Okay.
I think his speaking career came by proxy of the content he was putting out.
Right.
He didn't go seek a speaking career. Somebody came to him and said, hey, I book a lot of speakers. What do you think about speaking? Well, how much does it pay? Well, it pays $20,000.
If you think of comedy careers or you think of other speaking careers, I mean, the most prevalent speaking career in the country is pastor.
Right.
They set out to become a pastor or a comedian. They come out, but they don't generate a mega church or a huge following on their first show. It takes 10, 15, 20 years of practicing over and over and over and over before they see what they would consider success in their field of speaking.
Right.
And here's the thing, by proxy, you can have a great author who's now invited to speak on, religious principles, and they're going to be listened to because they've built a whole brand around the books they've written. So to your point, by proxy or directly, they can go after it multiple directions.
Sure.
The problem is,
Right.
in all those scenarios, you choose to listen to them because they're saying something that nourishes you.
Right. There's value.
It's always about what's in it for you before you would pay a dime to go see them.
Right.
And that's the thing that I don't see happening in a lot of these guys that are really pursuing speaking careers is they're just trying to grow themselves and make themselves look good. And very few times have I seen that turn into a successful speaking career.
Right. Right. So the next gentleman you're aware of, he likes to drop the F-bomb.
Potentially.
I don't know if you were referring to him before with the father who started the company, but it's Gary Vee.
Okay.
Right. And reason why he's
his last name isn't V, is it?
It's Vaynerchuk.
That's a lot of
And he
names.
tells his story in his speeches because it's a good story. He came from one of the Soviet bloc countries, Belarus.
Okay.
And he says he was traded for wheat, came to New Jersey, and embraced the American dream, the entrepreneurial dream from an early age.
Right.
Making thousands of dollars on the weekends with sports cards. He would set up tables at shows. And
Right.
He says he talks about, once upon a time pulling the flowers out of a neighbor's garden and ringing the doorbell and selling it back and stuff like that. Stuff on some level you might be able to appreciate. I think you and he are actually very equivalent, but obviously different ways of conduct.
Right.
So here we go. This is, I just picked this video from Mr. Gary Vee, who's a favorite of mine.
Jumping to conclusions and deciding who someone is off of a singular impression is one of the most intellectually, emotionally lazy activities a human can do, and it is now a global pandemic. Everyone out here is Judge fucking Judy, fucking 24/7 just judgment. The judgiest people are the ones that are judging themselves. It's also a lack of empathy, and I genuinely don't think anyone's bad. I think everyone's that's bad is in deep pain, and there's a way to fix it.
So,
budget isn't the variable of success. Being
automatically plays into the next one.
Yeah.
So he's talking about first impressions. I chose that for a reason because, we talked about, maybe the first impressions I make. I think I come off as fairly confident. I know where I'm most comfortable and where I can speak from. You come off as very confident because you same kind of situation. Thoughts on that video? Or Gary himself.
Well, no, I don't have any thoughts on Gary himself. It's not, there's not enough content in that specific expression to develop anything. I will say this. I've always told people I'm incredible at first impressions. It's the second and third that typically kill me.
Right.
That's
an interesting way to put it. You really think that?
I do.
Really?
And usually it was in my dating life with girls. Back in the day, I'd talk to her, she's like, oh, he's so nice. And then I'd talk to her again and she'd be like, who is this creep? Not that I was creepy, but that's just the interpretation I had of the moment. So that was a very common college phrase I used a lot, why I was single throughout college. But that being said, the bigger picture here is, I actually disagree depending on the context.
Right.
I can pick out really quickly when somebody is making a first impression with me and there's something inside of me that says, hey, this person isn't to be trusted.
Mm-hmm.
I trust that feeling in me with great, because I've been around so many swindlers and fake people, people who can put on a good show but really have no value or depth to the relationship after that initial interaction, and then it's going to be about what I can do for them from then on out. I can pick that person out of a crowd, and I know people in my life who are incredible at picking out of the crowd specific other issues in people. And I've learned to trust those first impressions with great. Even you yourself, Jim, I've asked you, hey, what do you think about the person? And you've made comments in the past like, you know what, I'm not all in on them yet. I'm not sure. Or, hey, you know what, man, I love them. They were great. And I take great measure in your ability, because I've learned to trust the response. So I think here's the nature of my interpretation and my rebuttal to his commentary. First impressions when it comes to business relationships, if you can get a second chance and you didn't do it on the first one, you better take advantage of the second chance. There isn't going to be a third chance. In terms of personal relationships, you want to rely on your first impressions, because you are risking part of your identity and hurt, pain, future. He talked about there are no bad people. A lot of people who are in pain are people who who didn't trust their first impressions and let somebody talk them into something that they really didn't want to do. They had an initial response, and then somebody convinced them to have a different response, and that's where the pain in life comes from. And I'm sure I can come up with 1,000 examples, but everybody can. I think that if there are no bad people, which I totally disagree with, I've known many bad people in my life.
I think we're all bad people.
But right. Yeah. I know I am. Yeah. If they're just pain driven, then his comment in and of itself contradicts itself, because a lot of pain comes from when we don't trust our first response in a situation and we choose to, for whatever reason, push past it. And then we end up hurt. Yeah. And so I think by all means, business is different than personal, but in business world, if you don't give me a great first impression, you get one more chance. And if I don't make a great first impression with a business, I know I've only got one more chance. Right. Because if they have two impressions that are not great, then I'm never going to get a chance to sell them, work with them, those kind of things. That's why it matters so much to create a great first impression. But personally speaking, trust your first impressions. Yeah. Trust them. And yes, I know examples of times whenever a guy meets girl thinks guy's awful. 3 years later, they get married, they live happily ever after. Right. But the guy at that time was probably not the right guy for her. And it probably took the additional 3 years for him to grow into the version of himself.
That was Courtney and my story.
Right. As actually going to be the right marriage. And so I totally agree that the first impression was bad, walk away. It doesn't mean you don't give them a chance a year, 2, 3, because things change. But if you'd have stuck, I know for a fact, if my wife had met me at 19 years old, we would have never gotten married. Right. It would have never, ever happened. I had way too much to learn. She met me at 23, and guess what? It worked out great. I wasn't the same person 3 years later as I was the first time around. Right. So. Right.
The next person I'm going to bring up is a friend of mine. I'm not going to say a good friend, because we've met on several occasions. I've had him on the podcast before. Been out to his place in Vegas, been on his podcast. I've produced the intro for his podcast, and he still raves about it, and I'm very grateful for that. Mr. Brad Lea, I wasn't going to pull one up from him because I couldn't. All the stuff that he has up here, I guess, didn't really fit the narrative I was trying to shape. I mean, he's as real as it gets. He's been through, he's got a lot of stripes. He's been through the ringer. He's built a business over the past 20, 25 years to, 8-figure, 9-figure status. He's got a very public proclamation. He wants to be a billionaire. I don't need to be a billionaire. I'm sure you agree with that as well. But he's driven to do that. So I think this is a recent reel that he put up, and I'm going to pick this one. Let's see what he says.
The reason why people are broke and fat and
The
reason why people are broke and fat and unhappy in terrible marriages is because they believe that something's going to come if they just be patient. Dude, patient is not what you need to be when it comes to that. Like if some chick is telling you, hey, give me a minute, let me slip into something more comfortable. By all means, be patient. But when we're talking about your dreams, we're talking about building what you want and getting what you want out of life, you better not be patient, dude. Time's a ticking. The reason why people are broke and fat and unhappy.
The reason why people are broke and fat are because they are patient.
You're not taking action on correcting her life. You know?
Yeah. So,
he's got a camera guy that follows him around.
Yeah.
And you know, he's got little things that he says every now and then. And, those are what he believes to be true. You know?
We blanket statements like that are dangerous.
Right.
And I think if you were to ask him,
I believe when I drink,
there we go.
if you were to ask him to parse out what he means by that, I think he'd probably land in a pretty healthy spot.
Right.
But at face value, that's a terrible line of thinking.
Right.
I would say, golly. I don't have a statistic to match my experience, but in my experience, observationally speaking, many of the companies that fail are the companies that are impatient.
Right.
They find a product. They love their product. There was an ice cream company locally that went from one location to like 22 locations in Middle Tennessee. They didn't patiently build their business, build the foundation. They just like, hey, we've got a cool product. Let's go open 22 locations. They didn't take the time.
Right.
To slow walk to success. They wanted to be an overnight sensation. In fact, they are no longer in business. All their stores shut down 3 years ago. When COVID hit, they didn't have the stability or efforts or foundation to sustain as a business. Now, I know COVID did that to a lot of companies, but they grew too big, too fast, way too impatient. Yeah. So as a business, man, patience has to be part of your fundamental values. And doesn't mean you're not ready to pull the trigger. You pull the trigger the minute the trigger is ready to pull, but you do not pull it until it's time. Snipers, impatient, that's a problem. You know, I can go through a list of people where impatience is really the thing that destroys them, not the thing that builds them. Now, to his point, if we were to parse it out, my assumption is what he's saying is don't wait around for something good to happen to you.
Yeah.
You've got to get up every day. And I use the phrase, just do the next thing. Every time I'm talking to somebody about how to handle the anxieties of all the stresses that are overtaking them in their business relationships, or even sometimes their personal relationships, or just the life they're living, it's, hey, stop worrying about the next 10 things that are going to have to get done. Just do the next thing, but don't stop. The minute you get done with that thing, do the thing after it. Then the thing, do you have a list of things you need to do? If not, sit down. That's your next thing to do. Write your list.
Make a list.
Then do the next thing. Never stop moving forward.
Right.
Patience is not a lack of momentum. I think that's where he and I disagree. Momentum can happen patiently. If I'm driving my car at 60 miles an hour, I have momentum. I could be driving 70. Impatience would tell me to drive 70, I'd wreck my car.
Yeah.
But at 60, I'm not being without momentum. I'm just not being aggressive in how I'm engaging the world around me. And he might be someone who loves to drive 120 because that's his personality type. That is risky and dangerous, especially in terms of business or personal relationships. You always want to be ready to do the next thing, know what the next thing is, and maintain a sense of extreme patience. Don't pull the trigger until the crosshairs are in sight, but be immediately ready the second you do it. Any hunter in the world would agree with me on that.
So I would imagine being in the last episode, you brought up the concept of you're living in bonus time.
Yes.
Patience doesn't play into that.
Yes.
I mean, it does and it doesn't, because, and just for context, if you go back to listen to that episode, it was probably, I don't know, in the 90s or 80s, as far as episode count. Around this time last year is when it came out. But John laid out the fact that you had a widowmaker heart attack at age 32.
Yep.
And ever since then, you've been saying, I'm in bonus time.
Correct.
Because I should have died.
Correct.
And here you are, almost 10 years later, 8 years later, man.
Yeah.
Do you still take patience into I guess you do.
I have to.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Anxiety never generates success. The feeling that if somehow I miss a chance to do the next thing or to do the right thing, suddenly I am overwhelmed. The point of the matter is I shouldn't be in any of this space right now.
Right.
I should be dead. I should not be alive. By God's grace, here I am. I am still alive. And the thing about it that I have to attest to that is I am not in control of my timing.
Yeah.
My timing has come and gone. Now I am reliant in my faith upon God for my timing. But personally speaking, whether or not my heart chooses to fail me in the next 3 months or 6 months or 5 years is not my decision.
Right.
To 20 years, I don't know. But what is within my decision is how I use this time. Always stay active. But do not live life with this feeling of constant anxiety, because I will accelerate my heart condition Number one. Number two, I have no control over it.
Right.
So for me, patience is living while working with a sense of peace that all I can do as a person is just the next thing.
Right.
I can't do the next 5 things. If I do, I will end up halfway doing all 5 of them. I just do one thing next. What's the next thing for me? Well, this morning was getting up, then coming in and lining out my staff. After I lined up my staff, I got a project underway for them to start working on. After that, I came in here. Now I'm sitting here talking to my business partner. This is just the next thing. When I get done with this, I'm going to eat some lunch.
Right.
Because this is the next thing. You cannot come to my lunch now.
Damn you.
I know, it's terrible. Yeah. But this is how I operate. And so for me, I don't live a world of patience or impatience. I am very patiently going through the next thing.
Right. If you had to put a TED Talk together, or if you had to talk for 18 to 20 minutes on a topic, what would it be that's impactful?
Who am I speaking to?
Other business owners. I mean, typically TED Talk are people that are seeking out inspiration, fulfillment, business knowledge and nuggets. You're familiar with the TED concept, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
I would love if I had 18 minutes to speak to that crowd about finding standards in their business or in their personal life that exists outside of their own experience. Mm-hmm. Our world has become such a cavernous space of my experience is my truth, therefore I can live it. That there is no fundamental truth for anybody to pursue. That truth might be a leadership book that you've read that, man, I just loved it. And it needs to be what I found maybe it's, the story of McDonald's or Apple Computer and their growth. And you say, hey, look, they did it this way. This worked out really well for them. I'm going to base my truth on the experiences of these other masterminds in business. Maybe it's religious. Maybe, the Bible or your religious text is some place that you place your truth outside of yourself. Because a problem of truth that's placed inside of you in your experience is one, you can't compel anybody else to your truth. Mm-hmm. And two, anybody can compel you away from it if they just cause you to question your experiences. You have no standard to operate under that is outside of you. Here in the United States, we call it the law. The law is not arbitrary. It is established and we are held accountable to it. And that creates structure in our country for how people operate and the consequences if they don't. But if you run your business out of personal experience without something outside of you driving you to success, go read a book. Find a business consultant who you really trust. Delve into religious scripts like the Bible or otherwise. Find things that you can say, these are the standards from which I operate, and everything I do has to be interpreted through an outside of me fundamental concrete medium to be able to be successful in life and in business. That's what I would talk about.
That's beautiful. Right off the cuff. You weren't anticipating that question.
No, I did not know that question was coming.
Yeah. So, there you go. We're going to wrap things up with the Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast. Man, this is, it's always an episode, an interview that I always look at. I talk to you every day, right? But I get excited at the fact that, you're willing to at least put some of these wisdom nuggets out into the world. Very well spoken, very articulate as always. And, if anybody, if you listen to this podcast, if I've ever implored you to share it out, this is the one to share out. I believe that John, in the next 5 years, will have one heck of a side hustle doing exactly what I believe needs to be done. A lot of these sound principles that are, relatively selfless. So he's not trying to go out and be an influencer. He's not trying to be, if we can help him by proxy, just by spreading the word of this kind of thing, garner that kind of attention, champion him for podcast interviews. I mean, that's one of my goals for you this year is to get you on at least, 10 different podcasts and just spread that message. Cause the talent's there. You've always, whether you believe it or not, you just don't really have, I love the fact that you don't care about that aspect of it, right? Because it makes it more appealing. Right. It's a very passive thing. So there you go.
Awesome.
Thank you for being on. Always appreciate it. Please find and follow us at MMTBP.com. Find, follow, share, rate, review. If you know Dennis Quaid, let him know that I'm looking for him. And we're always looking for the next pinnacle of 10,000 average downloads for this particular podcast. For anybody that you think would be a good guest, let us know right there again, especially if they're a Middle Tennessee business owner and professional. MMTBP.com. Thank you, John.